Today, I'm with Tommy Trout. Now, Tommy's not only got the best name in the business, but he's the founder and CEO of a really exciting startup called WeFlex. Now, ever since Tommy can remember, he's been fascinated by people and their stories. So when he finished high school, he decided he wasn't going to let going to university in a way of his education. Instead, he began working in community services. So 15 years later, he's still in love with it, in love with helping others write a better life story for themselves and having them contribute to his own. Now, WeFlex is a company committed to improving the health outcomes of people living with disability through exercise and nutrition. And as Tommy puts it, it doesn't get much better than that. So today, I'm really excited to welcome Tommy. How are you, Tommy?
Very good. Thank you, David Burns. Thanks for having me. The best part about my name is my middle name,
You've never told me this. Come on.
Tommy Napoleon Trout, NT.
Is that right?
Yep, absolutely. My
Wow.
my dad was going to call me Napoleon first name. Mum fought him on that, thank God, and now it's just my middle name.
How funny. Well, I think you should use that. So, Tommy, I've been wanting to chat with you for ages, but you're obviously busy with WeFlex and getting it all started. So, I'm really looking forward to jumping into that and letting the viewers know a little bit more about what you're doing. But we'll kick off with, what does well-being mean to you?
I think for me, well-being is the first 5 minutes of your day and the last 5 minutes of your day. At least that's how I've always judged it. I can always gauge well-being based by how you wake up. If you're waking up feeling good and actually interested in getting out of bed, you've got a pretty good well-being, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And you can go to bed feeling pretty good about the day and at peace with yourself and the decisions you've made. Once again, your well-being is there. If I haven't trained or I've eaten like crap, I don't go to bed very well. And I definitely don't wake up easier either. So I've always judged, I feel like or the filters and the machines in your brain aren't fully turned on when you wake up. So you sort of have a clear idea on how you're really feeling. It's more your body talking than your psyche.
Yeah, cool. So you really make sure that you bookmark, the mornings and the evenings, and then if you can get that right, what happens during the day is pretty good for you.
Absolutely. Crazy routine based. So I love being able to go to bed at the right time. I've got my process, I've got my diary, I write stuff down, reflect on it, forgive myself for the day, go to bed, wake up, do my meditation and my yoga, and then I'm off to the races. And I know that that's the best way to frame my day.
Yeah.
It's just one of the best investments I've ever made, definitely.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about your routine then. So you're talking about some meditation and journaling there. Like, what does it look like?
Absolutely. So wake up, drink a lot of cold water, then get on the couch and do some meditation. So I'll do the Waking Up app, which is freaking awesome. Love that. Currently in a Stoic playlist at the moment around Stoicism, which is really great. Spend 10 minutes doing that. Then I go and get on and do some yoga. I've got a mate, Camille, who wrote a personalized yoga plan for me in my body. Spend 45 minutes doing that. Then I do healthy breakfast and then the emails. And at the very least, I've already had a great start to the day. So if I don't do anything else, at least I've done my meditation and yoga.
And what happens when you don't do it? So you said before about forgiving yourself. When you're writing your journal and stuff. Are there some days that you just don't get to do all that, or are you pretty?
Absolutely, plenty of days. Because at the moment, the life of a social entrepreneur or founder, it's a lot more glamorous than it really is. It's just constantly not doing enough and working your ass off and feeling like you're not getting anywhere most days. Swimming into the void. And so what happens is that I know that myself, I'm a very high energy, manic kind of guy. And if I'm not meditated and stretched, I can go off in 100 different directions. And so it's really important that if I start structured, I find it easier to remain structured for the rest of the day. And, there is a lot of guilt. Even if you're no longer, people who finish uni can tell you that when you're no longer at uni, you still have that weird guilt of not doing something or not, there must be something due, or there must be that assignment that's not there. It's like a PTSD. And when you're a founder and doing your own thing, it's the same. Like there's always something you should have done that day you need to do. And you just have to remind yourself you're a human, you've got limited capacity, you'll get to it tomorrow, and allow yourself to feel that, as opposed to going to sleep thinking about it and feeling bad about it. So you're constantly managing yourself, because in a very real way, when you're running your own business at the beginning, you are by far the biggest risk and the obstacle to that business doing well.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic that you are aware of that, and you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Are there any insights you've got to the during your day? So you've got it at the beginning and the end. Is there anything that you do throughout the day?
So at the moment, I'm loving the Trello board. So that's a website that you can do. It's a project management tool. I love doing that. And also, I find another thing that's really helpful for me is actually calling the team, the WeFlex guys, to the board of directors, and talking to them. They help keep me grounded and help keep me focused as well. I find that I can get lost in detail with things that just don't merit it, especially in the first draft. It's really great to talk to them, and also making time to cook a good lunch as well as do some exercise as well. So breaking up your day and doing something else is a great way to refocus yourself, because after a while you get diminishing returns on your effort. If you're sitting at your computer for 8 hours, you're not doing much after a while.
Your productivity goes. And you have told me before that you do like watching, I think it's 80s horror films. Is that right?
Yeah. I've realized that now, because I'm so tired and so mentally flagged all the time, that I find I either need to watch something that's incredibly stupid and not going to challenge me intellectually. And horror movies are a brilliant antidote for that. It's so ridiculous. And watching people get murdered grisly does make you think that your problems aren't so bad. It puts things in perspective, and then you sort of just feel a bit better about yourself moving on. That and reality TV, or the trash reality TV, it is my guilty pleasure as well.
Well, at least you've admitted to it. I think we've all got those guilty pleasures. And from knowing you how I do for a couple of years now, Tommy, like where does this passion for inclusion come from, and particularly supporting people with disability?
Comes from home. I grew up as a young carer, looking after my little brother who's on the spectrum. That's my little brother, Jackie boy. He's my best mate, soulmate, love him to pieces. And, growing up, I saw Jack navigate a world that wasn't really built for him. Everything that, we wanted to do, and every step that he had to take in the same journey that I was on, like public school and the rest of it, it wasn't really built for him, and it had to be constantly a different version of the mainstream that he got to go into. So we're talking about going into satellite classes where he's being lumped in with people with who are way more who have higher support needs than he does. And I just saw that, I saw him get bullied in primary school, and I was constantly defending him from that. But after a while, you're not there, you can't protect. And yeah, it's really scary having someone you love so much have to navigate that world that can be almost outright hostile towards them, purely for who they are and what they haven't done. And, growing up with that, we also realized through Jack's journey in diagnosis, we also learned that our dad was also autistic. They're both Asperger's, which I don't think's a diagnosis anymore. It's high functioning autism or something. But, I grew up in that sort of household. But, what happened, the difference was dad didn't have a label. He didn't have a diagnosis, whether Jack did. So the world treated them both differently, even though they've both got the same situation, which is fascinating for me. And, I then went into community services. I spent time in disability care, and I saw quite a wide breadth of the different types of disability in Australia, the world that they have to navigate. And, once again, there are times when it was really hard to help someone in a wheelchair access a mainstream event purely because it's just not built for them. Like, there's disabled toilets, but the door frame isn't wide enough to accommodate half the wheelchairs on the market at the moment. Like, ramps are going into places, but then they're cramped once you get in there. And it just became this growing obsession, realizing just how uninclusive or inaccessible parts of Australia are. And if it's inaccessible for them, I couldn't imagine what that does to their psyche or their sense of entitlement to access society and community the way that we do. And I want to fight and do what I can to create a more inclusive world for my little brother. And hopefully my nephews and nieces and their kids will become less and less of a thing, and the world becomes more inclusive. And a big part of that is the idea that it's actually a win-win. Like, it's not charity. There's actually a good reason to do that. There's a business case made for inclusion. And that's a really important thing for me, because I don't know if charity is something that's going to systemically change things. Whereas making economic reason for inclusion, I think, is actually a more effective way to create systemic, permanent, incentivized change in Australia.
Yeah, but
If that
I agree. I think, charities have got a place, haven't they? But if we want sustained, organizations and real change, it has to make money as well. And, from hearing you around this burning desire to help those, who need it most and to support others, that brings us to WeFlex and, this amazing organization that I think you are really going to transform the fitness industry, making it more inclusive. But instead of me talking about it, tell us about the aspirations for the business and a little bit more about it.
I'll tell you where it came from. And when I was about 9 years ago, I was working in respite care up in Thornley. And the first client that I was given his sheet. And the sheet just said psychotic, autistic, antisocial. His name is Cam, go. And that was it. So obviously I'm driving over to this guy's house for the first time and I'm shitting bricks because I had no idea what to expect. And I didn't know who he was as a person, just his diagnosis. When I meet the guy, I realize he's actually a real sweetheart. But this guy, he lived on his own and he left his apartment twice a week. Once to go to the center where I work to see me, and once where a support worker took him shopping for the week. That was it. His family had long abandoned him. He had no friends. That was his day. He didn't have a single person that he talked to that wasn't paid to talk to him, which is absolutely unacceptable. But that's the status quo for a lot of people in Australia. And, as a guy, and he was a young fella too, 25, and as a guy, he's 25 on antipsychotic medication. And for those of you who don't know, antipsychotic medication, the side effects from that can be severe. I mean, insane weight gain, loss of libido, acne, lethargy, like just a complete zombie pill. And it's sort of like chemo in that it can be it's only a little bit better than what it's treating sometimes,
Right.
It's a lot of guys toss up whether it's worth it. I've been in those rooms where like, I'd rather be psychotic than go on that pill. And, the solution I had at the time was, well, I'd love to take him to the gym, try and help him burn off those kilos. And what happened was I did take him there. He enjoyed it, but I realized that really the transformational part wasn't the exercise, so that helped a lot. It was the fact that I gave him somewhere else to go in the world. His world got that little bit bigger and he was able to go to the gym. They let him go there for a gold coin every time because they loved him and he was there during the day. And a lot of the regular punters in the gym also looked over, saw him, met him, said hello, supported him. I mean, I remember the second time I took him, I was going to get a drink of water and I came out and I saw these two massive like bodybuilding meatheads talking to this guy and I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm going to go. And I go walk over and I realized that they were like cheering him on and supporting him and giving him tips. And I'm like, oh, of course, these guys are nerds about bodybuilding and they're excited to help someone trying to improve their life, and I built this program up and more and more people from the center were going. And in disability care, you're onto a winner if people show up. They actually just show up and they want to be there and they're willing to pay, a gold coin to go in. That's a big deal. And it just kept happening. And I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is so cool. Because I was in a small community gym. I'm looking around and there's 6 people with disabilities working out with the general public, getting along. They're being spotted by their mates, learning about the body. And as a result, they were quitting smoking. They were buying activewear for themselves. They were saving up for it, like everything, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And then what happened was literally at that time, my dad died. And my dad died at 59 years old. And he was autistic. He was incredibly unhealthy. I looked at my little brother. I saw that he was going down the same road. He was going to die young as well. And I thought, that's just not on. We tried to find Jack a personal trainer, but nobody wanted to touch him. I mean, second they hear the word autistic, they said too hard, or the ones that did talk to him like he was a moron. And Jack's smarter than me. Like, it's just ridiculous. So I literally went and did a Cert 4 in fitness and became a personal trainer purely so I could train my brother because no one else would. And that went really well. He's lost weight. He works out. We work out together every Sunday. He does separate sessions on his own, which is a big deal. He does a lot of walking and stuff like that. He's really taking control of his health and he's on a positive trajectory with it, which is great. Then you look at the stats and you realize that there are hundreds of thousands of people with disabilities and they may not have someone like me willing to do the course, know their unique needs and be there to help them. And that's where WeFlex came from. It originally started as an idea to train personal trainers to work with disability because at the moment, we really can't find any courses for personal trainers to learn how to work with the unique needs of people with disability. So we started with, okay, well then let's go and train these personal trainers. But then we realized, well, if they're going to be working with them, they need to build the NDIS. We need to be a provider to do that. PTs aren't going to do that. That's a pain in the butt for them, burden of registration. Okay, so we'll train them and we'll be the registered body, and then we'll give them the work. And so what we've done is we've put together a system, or put together a business that looks to get people who with disability who want to get fit and active on the plan or not on an NDIS plan, and we connect them with personal trainers who we vet, we sort out, we train them up to meet those unique needs. We then match them. We sort the scheduling out. We sort the payment out. We put them both in a position to succeed. That's really the basis of the business, because we talk to PTs, we've done surveys, and they love the idea. They want to give back. They want to do work in the middle of the day when you don't have any clients. They just don't have the confidence and they don't have the know-how. And that's where we come in.
I'm really interested in terms of the epiphany that you had, Tommy, because it seems like all roads lead to Rome. You know, you were obviously with your brother and your dad, and then you're doing all your work in your community services, and and then you've got a client and you're taking them to the gym, and then did you just, can you remember the moment when you thought, you know, you said that you realized this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life? So can you remember back to that?
I just loved it. I remember being at a gym in Hornsby, and I looked around, and there were, I always paired the guys up and set them off. Would write down and have pictures of my stick figure drawings of what exercises they were doing.
Yeah.
And I set them up, and I would just do a circuit, just checking in on each of them, how they're going. And the idea was that they'd support each other, you know, so I didn't need to be there necessarily to build independence.
Yeah.
And I remember I just didn't want it to end. I wanted that session to go forever. It was just so much fun. Like, they loved it. They had a good time. And I just saw the impact. Like, you know, I've worked in community services since, really, I started volunteering at 16. Yeah. I'm now 33. So I've been doing it for 17 odd years. And everyone thinks that when you're working this, every day is just awesome. And every day you just got these amazing experiences and journeys. And isn't it great? Just, you know, who needs money in the charity sector when you've got this goodery? And really, the truth is, it's pretty crap a lot of the times. Like, you don't feel great. You're pushing shit uphill a lot. You're working with people who aren't ready to be helped or don't want to be helped, or you're hamstrung by either the bureaucracy of the charity that you're working for or the funding requirements. And, you know, it can be hard. But every now and then you get a moment, or you get a time where you really, truly make an impact. You feel it, you experience it, you resonate with it, and it never leaves you for the rest of your life. That was one of the very few times that's ever happened to me, and I never forgot it. And for 9 years, I've been wanting to do something about it. But literally, like, the next year, the NDIS was announced. And like any massive $24 billion government scheme, of course, it was a really smooth, swift transition that everyone benefited from. So that took years of, you know, fustercluckery just to get that organized and put down. And so I've always sort of been holding off, because I needed to see how that beam landed, what it looked like, before I could ever plug anything towards it. And originally it was going to be a charity, but the more time I spent working in charities, for charities, working for the funding network, looking at reviewing charities, my opinions on the actual structure of charity changed. And I realized I don't know if they're always the best agent for change. I actually am passionate about the idea that there's a business case for change, and there's an incentivization for change. And I think you're going to get more long-lasting effects if you can build those, as opposed to always relying on charity.
Yeah.
But honestly, ever since that moment, it's completely under my skin, and it hasn't left.
Yeah. And some of the language that you often use is, you know, inclusion's good for business, which I think is so true. And, you know, when you're talking about the clients that you're working with, making their world a little bit bigger is I think something that's incredibly powerful. And with that, making their world a little bit bigger, what are some of the challenges that, you know, a person with disability would find when they're going into a gym, Tommy? There's stuff that you're trying to, I suppose, level the playing field and make it a little bit more welcoming for them.
Oh yeah, so it goes. There's a lot of layers to it. I mean, firstly, gyms don't market or advertise to people with disabilities. They've got no interest.
Right.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be handing flyers out to people in wheelchairs when they go past in the city. So, and there's no representation in any advertising or media. So when we were putting together the deck and the website staff and our content and collateral, before we even started training anybody, we realized that, and our graphic designers came to us and said, we really struggled to find imagery of people with disabilities in the gym. Like, that's how rare it is. Well, that's how little people have ever connected those two dots together. Like, it just don't belong. So why people would go to the gym when they don't feel like they belong there, I think it's because they just feel that way. And then you've got the issue of accessibility. There are some gyms that are not accessible from a sensory standpoint. So as you walk in, the gym is insanely loud with really terrible music, so and the lighting can also be really aggressive and very bright as well. So I know that I've taken guys with sensory issues or sensory needs into these gyms, and they've just been overloaded. And I've seen them literally affected by the music, like it's an actual brick wall. Like, nah, you just see them turn around, like, I can't do that. That is way too much. And so it's very hard. So the issue, especially with autism and change, is that it's easier to process sensory things when you're expecting it and you know about it. It's why they're typically very uncomfortable with change, and it takes a really long time to get that transition in. Same with my brother, and so, but when you're dealing with that change and the sensory is super overloaded because it's the gym atmosphere, it's even more intimidating and daunting. But then throw into the mix that you've got personal trainers and you've got gym staff who have no idea anything about disability. They've probably have had no exposure their entire lives. There's all these things that they wouldn't think about that are creating access issues. Or you can talk about a very physical level where gyms that aren't wheelchair accessible, period, that have slim doors, people with wheelchairs can't get through, period. Or you go in there and sure, there's a ramp in, sure, they can go through, but then the gym floor itself is absolutely crowded with equipment that they couldn't access half the floor themselves. And once again, why would they want to go there if it's not built for them? But why would the gym want to change things if they have no customers that require it? So you've got to actually meet in the middle. We've got to bring the clients to the gyms, and then we've got to support the gyms cater to their needs. It has to happen at the same time, because it's hard to get a gym to change anything about their layout if it's not going to be catering to any existing customers. But we need to get the customers in to create that demand.
Yeah, definitely design and accessibility is an issue, isn't it? Particularly for old facilities. I think, newer ones are more compliant now in terms of DDA, etc. But I think with your model, every time I hear about it, and you're talking about gyms or aquatic centres or whatever, and during that afternoon period, Tommy, you can sometimes shoot a cannon in there, can't you? There's definitely dead times, and they're ideal periods for when other client groups could come and use the facilities. I suppose the other part to it is educating the PTs to be feeling comfortable with coaching and teaching people with disability, because sometimes it can be confronting, can't it?
If you don't have exposure, I mean, I always have to remind myself that I'm comfortable around it because I grew up around it, and it's not natural. And it's just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean you're negative or it's bad or you're a bad person for being uncomfortable. You're just uncomfortable, and you just get over that by exposure, and that's something that we need to provide. But what's really interesting though is that as a PT, I had to work as a typical PT to get my hours up to qualify. And you spend most of your day waking up at 4:35 to get to the gym by 6 for your first client. The first client probably bails on you and you don't get paid for that, so that's an hour wasted. Then the second client at 7 shows up really hungover, and then you're dealing with them, and you watch them get fatter every week because they go and pay their penance with you for 1 hour of torture to make up for all the crappy life choices they've been making throughout that week. Yeah. And you're just like, this isn't rewarding. Like, I'm getting paid and I'm doing it because I need it. Because personal trainers some of them are barely above the poverty line themselves, and so the idea is that, like, it's not always a very rewarding experience, similar to community services. But what if I was able to give you a client where this is a highlight of their week? They wait for this. They can't wait. It's a pillar in their schedule, and it's at 10 a.m. So you actually get to relax, you get to come in, and we facilitate it. We do all the business development. We train you up to meet their needs. You get a full, complete human profile of them. So the way WeFlex works, and it's very much informed by Erica Gleason, who's the founder and CEO of Autism Swim. She's on our board and she's absolutely incredible. The philosophy that we decided to take was that we're not going to focus on the disability. We're going to acknowledge it. We understand it, but we talk about it through this prism of unique needs. I mean, if I'm like, David, go train that guy, he's autistic, that doesn't give you anything to work with. But if I'm like, go train that guy, just remember he needs slow, simple communication. He doesn't like direct eye contact or face-to-face stuff. And he's very sensitive to light and noise. You're like, okay, I can build something around that. I know how to work with that. That's more useful. And really, if you're any service industry, you're working for the unique needs of each table.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to almonds. So when a waiter in a restaurant has to cater to my unique needs, right?
Yeah.
Like, we need to sort of just take the stigma away from it. And the idea that personal trainers also feel like they need to be a qualified psychologist to work with someone with autism, which also isn't true. It's just about understanding how they need to receive information, you cater to that, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, and with the Cert 3 and 4, Tommy, so the PTs obviously have to do their hours, and so this is a win-win because they get to get some time to do that, and then but obviously we're catering and providing services to people with disability. How many hours do you need to do for you to get your Cert 3 and 4?
I think I had to do 40 hours of PT work to get my Cert 4, but that was a long time ago, so I'm probably wrong about that, but that ballpark feels about right.
Yeah.
And the fitness industry is pretty tough. There's 1,000 personal trainers in Australia going after an incredibly fickle market. It is definitely a luxury item for most people, despite the fact it's popular. And I think COVID really showed that it's one of the first things that goes. When times are tough, you sack your personal trainer pretty quick, and gyms really struggled as well, obviously. And so one of our business cases for inclusion is we're trying to increase your target market or increase your potential customer base. And these are customers who'll be coming to you during your underutilized hours. They're going to be going in the day, so that it's better for you and your PT. Might even have a chance of a regular lifestyle as well. Because most PTs work during the morning, they do after work, and they're either twiddling their thumbs or doing a second job during the day. Supplement that income, and that's where the inclusion in the business case comes from. Like, it's in their interest to do this, and we're going to facilitate that. Also, the idea that some people with disabilities absolutely do it tough financially, but not all. It involves that every single person with disability has no money. They just don't have They just don't have products marketed to them a lot of the time. And so and it's not like a gym membership, for any time or snap, it's like $15 a week. It's absolutely not out of their range. And the NDIS also provides support for the personal training piece, as it's a line item in its own right. So there actually is. There is now consumer power in people living with a disability in Australia. And
and that's the beauty of the NDIS, isn't it? It's putting the power back into the consumer to spend the money on whatever activities, services that they want, which I think is fantastic. And just listening to you, I mean, I think the retention of some of these clients as well is probably a lot more, because if you get to build up a good relationship as well, and it's improving their life, and their lifestyle, it's not going to be so transient maybe, because you're building up these strong relationships, with people that really get you, and understand your unique needs, and which I think is a really cool thing about your business model as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A big one thing that we're really passionate about is we're in this for the long game. Whenever you always see in the fitness industry, get shredded in 10 weeks. Like, that's
never worked for me.
It's normally a crock, right? And it's usually by somebody who's very genetically gifted. But we're in this for the long haul, and so we want to build relationships. We don't like diet. We like, health choice, making choices when you eat. And it's like, we don't want going to the gym to be a punishment. We want it to be something that's fun, rewarding, makes you feel empowered and good about yourself. And so, and once again, PTs want to do it. They just lack the confidence.
And what's the next steps then, Tommy? Are you in some facilities now?
We've got a pilot that we're rolling out. So at the moment, disability is an incredibly broad term, and it covers hundreds of thousands of unique cases of it. So we're starting with a small pilot group across a few gyms in inner Sydney with personal trainers that we've hand selected and training up. We're put together our first training course.
Wow.
And it is around the idea of working with people with mild to moderate intellectual disability.
Yeah.
So people like my brother, someone who might have Down syndrome, for example, they're the type of clients that we're going to be working with the first time in the first round. And the training that we're rolling out, it's not just being written by Erica Gleason, who's a clinical behavioural specialist. It's also being co-designed by people with those exact needs. So what's important to us and what has happened throughout is we have representation in the business throughout. So every important decision that we've ever made, we've actually checked it with people with disability. And our first training module is going to be co-designed by people with those exact unique needs. And they're going to be informing us on what it's like for them. They're going to provide context. And they're also going to help us in the presentation and facilitation of the workshops themselves. So when we do it in person, if you're a PT and you want to learn more about it, there's going to be someone with those, there's going to be one or two people with those unique needs in the room instructing you along with me in what that is. So you get exposure, you can ask questions, you can ask dumb questions. They're there to answer it. They're there to realize, help you put it in context, understand it, and feel more comfortable doing it. And when we're doing stuff online, like a learning management system, we're going to be recording scenarios, case studies, whatever, using actors with those unique needs. And it's also going to be done by an inclusive film company. So we're all about that diversity and inclusion. It's at the very core of what we do. We're going to have targets for employment. We want to provide paid work because their experience and their expertise in these conditions is second to none. And we want to reward that. We want to build that ecosystem.
I think it's a winner if you're getting people to consult along the way, isn't it, Tommy? With the people that exactly who have these unique needs. So I think that's very clever, and obviously, as you say, diversity and inclusion is part of your DNA. So can't wait to watch to see the results of these pilot sessions. And in terms of, I suppose, just changing the questions a little bit, Australia and chronic diseases, Tommy. So if you could nudge the system in one way to improve the well-being of Australians, what could that be?
Preventative. If I want to change the system, I want to keep people out of them. So growing up, we were always told as kids that it's easier to build a rail at the top of a cliff than helicopter people out from the bottom of the cliff, And so that's sort of our idea. We don't, at the moment in Australia, people living with a disability, they're 3 times more likely to have 3 or more long-term serious health issues.
Yeah.
Right. Disability does contribute to life expectancy and life issues, absolutely, but it's not the sole contributor. There are comorbidities, there are lifestyle-related diseases which absolutely play a part, and they can give you they can get you into that system sooner than you should. We're trying to get them out through exercise, diet, eating well, but also more importantly, we want to have that social connection as well. The ability to go to a gym. It's a new place, they're surrounded by people. And as you know, you can actually get the benefits of socialization just by being in a room with people, not even engaging directly with them. I think last year we all learned what quarantine and isolation does for you, and humans are not designed to do it. I mean, and when you want to talk about isolation, I always remind people, I used to work in corrections over in, and they always reminded me that they you go to prison, you're surrounded by some of the most scary, violent, worst people in the world, and they punish you by taking you away from them and putting you in isolation. That's punishment.
That is quite something, isn't it, when you think of it like that?
That tells you how bad isolation is for you. And so the ability to give people an ability to access a community of any kind and be able to engage or at least be around other people, I think will also have huge benefits to their health, as well as their ability to socialize and feel part of the community.
Yeah.
But I want to keep them out of the system. That's the big thing.
Preventative, and certainly that social connection is so important. And I mean, it's clear, Tommy, you're on a mission, with WeFlex. But where do you see yourself personally in the system, and how do you contribute and influence it?
I think probably going to repeat what I just said. I see myself as being outside and trying to push people away, or trying to guide them away from the system, and guide them into the gym instead, as opposed to getting into that sort of more clinical system, which doesn't always play well with people. Systems themselves aren't particularly human, and there's never been a system that's catered to every human. perfectly imperfect at all times. And
Mm.
so really, I just want to keep people out of those. And I see us as being not just a organization or a business that really looks to improve health outcomes by preventative care through diet and exercise, which we know has that impact, but also being a bit of a movement as well. I think the more mainstream we make that representation in gyms, the easier and more included and entitled those people are going to feel towards accessing those services. Because at the moment they're not entitled. There's zero effort to get them in there. And so I think the more mainstream we make that, the system will hopefully mold itself around it as well. And it will become more normal for doctors to prescribe to people with disabilities exercise at the gym, go work out, because at the moment, one of the worst things we do to people with disabilities, and it was Genevieve Clay Smith from Bus Stop Films who said this, and I love it. She says that one of the worst things we do to people with disabilities is we set the bar so low.
Mm.
It's pathetic how low we set the bar. I mean, my little brother's autistic. It doesn't impact him physically at all.
Mm.
So we're just okay from a status quo standpoint to watch him get really unhealthy and fat and get into the system of healthcare and really early on. And we're okay for him to stay at home and potentially develop mental health issues from insane isolation, as well as the certain disabilities contributing towards it as well, entering that system as well. Once again, completely preventative.
Yeah, I agree. And we can we can be too scared and protect people. I think it's about, giving people that opportunity and removing those barriers and they might fall over, but they'll get back up again. And let's not put limitations on people.
Oh yeah. So it's called dignity of risk. And I was working in the sector as I saw that term really come about. And so, in the past, it was all about liability and it was all about keeping people safe, secure. I don't care what they eat as long as they're making it themselves. Tick. We have to do exercise, walk around the block. Tick. And it's about really coddling and just keeping people hyper safe. And but I also witnessed it with my brother and just how insultingly low the bar was for him, set for him by all the services I tried to work with him. And you realize, God, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to be treated that way. And then why is it okay to treat them that way? And so, and I noticed that every time I recommended something a little bit riskier, a little bit above what the service would have wanted me to do, they're like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And so I'm like, okay. And it was just that slow progression. I'm like, well, let's go to the gym. Okay, let's actually start lifting real weights. Let's actually do this. And they were always there. They wanted to do it. And I always asked, what if you get, I was always made the joke, if you get hurt, I'll get fired. And they're like, I don't mind. They're like, but it's more like I don't mind the idea of getting hurt. I want to do this. I'm choosing to do this. You know what I mean? Let's do this. And it's like, yeah, you're right. And that's why Reflex, we spent time with branding gurus, Bernie and Kiva, who I love, and we had people with some of the disability in the room. We had a personal trainer, and they asked us, "How do you see this company?" And people in the room were pointing towards the archetypes. They're like, "Oh, we're the carer, we're the supporter." And me and my little brother were like, "No, we're the opposite. We don't want to care. We don't want to be that really sooky, nerdy Mickey Mouse type of organization that thinks all people do these core cases that need to be looked after. We see them as completely unrealized potential and not, as my brother says, not disabilities but missed abilities."
No, I like it.
We're champions of this, and we want that hero archetype of just the ability that we want to just destroy the barriers and make it mainstream and prove to you that these guys are absolutely benefit and can contribute to a gym community like anybody else.
Yeah. Well, you are definitely raising the bar, Tommy, and I honestly, truly believe that you're going to transform the fitness industry. You're a disruptor. There's no doubt about it. And I've told you this before, there's not many people I get as excited as I do talking to them as you, because I love your authenticity and you're real. And I know it's not going to be easy and there might be a few bumps along the way, but I think, if you keep that desire and passion that you've got, I'm really excited to watch your journey and see Reflex grow. And I can see it in a lot of facilities in Australia. I think there's a huge need. And yeah, even internationally, who knows where Reflex might go, but just keep doing what you're doing. And I think, you've got some good people around you as well, which I think is always important. And, it's exciting times. So is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Is there anything else I'd like to add? No, I think I'd ask anyone who watches this to ask yourself, when was the last time you saw someone with a disability in the gym?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And look around.
Mm. And I think that talks back to your point before when you were mentioning about who do we target in marketing and collateral, like we often market to the fit and healthy people, don't we, with nice photos and stuff. But, now I can't recall ever seeing anything with a person with a disability, and that's a physical disability. There's obviously things that you can't see as well, right? But it is an interesting one.
Oh yeah, like even to the point where we realize one thing we want to get into is there's not even active wear for people with chairs or people with amputations or even people with autism. They can have sensory issues with clothing and fabric, even the stitching and lining in the shirts.
Mm.
We've realized that there are guys who showed up to the gym in jeans and dress shoes, because the activewear wasn't appropriate for them for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so we realized it goes that deep. Like it's there, and activewear and fashion may seem like a bit of a shallow point to make, but I actually don't think so. I think that when you look around at the gym, you see people in it, and it gives them empowerment. It makes them feel good. It's clothing for an activity. I mean, if you go to a footy club and they don't give you a jersey or anything, you don't feel like you belong on that team. And the thing here, like it actually is part of the identity. We want people with disabilities to feel like they belong, and we're taking them serious as an athlete. So that's something we are really excited about and will do one day.
So is that stage 2?
We'll see. We're currently in an equity raise, and we'll see how we go, and we budget accordingly. But it's definitely on the radar, and it's something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. Wow. It's that real holistic side for you, isn't it? In terms of supporting people with disability in gyms, looking at every different element of what it brings together. So, yeah, fantastic. Well, Tommy, thank you so much for chatting to me. Really, really enjoyed it. And wish you all the well. Yeah, wish you all the best for the rest of the year, and hope to catch up with you soon in person.
Thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Cheers, Tommy.
Bye, mate.
Bye.